diversion worked, and the truck will be here shortly. Let's go to work.
Payday 3 has had an incredibly shaky launch, which has rendered the game completely unplayable for the majority of its current life. Despite this, I was able to play the game during early access, as well as for a few hours once Starbreeze fixed their service for the first time. While the gameplay is as fun as always, there were plenty of instances where I was left wanting more when I shouldn't have to. I was constantly thinking to myself, I wish I could do this thing I could do in Payday 2. In its current state, there are a plethora of missing features in Payday 3 that were already present in Payday 2, as well as straight up downgrades, which I wanted to discuss in today's video. I was not there for Payday 2's launch, but regardless of the state that it launched in, the game blossomed into one of the best gaming experiences available today. So why they would not incorporate more from said game into their newest installment is an absolute wonder to me. So I know I'm going to get heavily clowned for this, but the machine I play on is an Asus laptop with an RTX 3060 and a Ryzen 5900 HS. Sure, this is not really a crazy computer by any means, but it has a pretty good amount of power, and it's been pretty good to me for the most part. For reference, I'm able to run Elden Ring maxed out at a solid 60 frames, and Red Dead 2 at a semi-consistent 60 frames. But yeah, while Payday 3 is certainly a great improvement to Payday 2's graphics, the game should not cause any issue for my computer, especially since I can run those games. When I saw that the recommended graphics card for Payday 3 is a GTX 1080, I was a little baffled. Obviously it's an old card, but I would never have thought that it would be the lowest you would need in order to steadily run this game. To be clear, while Payday 3 is certainly an upgrade from Payday 2 in terms of graphical fidelity, it is by no means a technological marvel like Red Dead Redemption 2. Payday 3, like Payday 2, still does not even have facial animations. When I first booted up the game in early access, I was baffled to watch my FPS stutter and remain below 40 frames during combat waves. I cannot fathom that my reasonably new computer could not handle a game that does not even look particularly impressive. It is extremely annoying to have to look up YouTube tutorials in order to get a stable, playable frame rate in a new game, but that's exactly what I had to do. One of the biggest revelations to me was so unbelievable that I stared at my screen for half a minute when I saw it. By default, Payday 3 runs in DirectX 11. While that's fine, and I understand that there are concerns with compatibility, there's no option to change it in the menu. In the in-game settings, there's no DirectX option. Instead, I had to write -DX12 within the Steam launch arguments. The fact that an option which over doubled my frame rate is not even present within the game is pretty damn annoying, and it means a lot of people who can run the game at a much more stable frame rate will never know about this option, so hopefully this is added into the game in the very near future. With Payday 3, Starbreeze moved from the Diesel game engine, which was designed for racing games, to Unreal Engine. With this change, I have noticed a problem that is pretty common with the Unreal games, which is shader pre-compilation issues. The issue shows whenever a piece of new lighting is introduced for the first time. Games such as Call of Duty have fixed this issue by pre-compiling shaders before you begin playing. For whatever reason, the issue is especially prominent in the Unreal Engine. Basically, my understanding is that whenever you shoot a gun for the first time or throw a grenade or anything that involves lighting, noticeable stutters occur, rendering the game extremely annoying to play for the first couple of heists. I don't know if it's because my shaders have been properly compiled or if DirectX 12 lessens the issue, but I've noticed that the issue has been subsided mostly on my end. Lastly, but probably most insane, is that on September 26th, the game has started to crash if you are using the State of Liberty mask and DX12. This means that you cannot use the $90 pre-order mask if you want to play the game. Actually fucking unbelievable. Check this out, guys. I changed my graphics settings in Payday 3, and they added this cool new feature where you're not allowed to do that. If you just change your graphic settings and you try to go into the main part of the main menu where you hit play, it will actually just crash your game. I had to set the game to DirectX 11, take off the pre-order mask, then close the game and re-enable DirectX 12 in order to continue playing and recording footage for this video. Hands down, one of the coolest aspects of Payday 2 was the way they styled the user interface. It also has this fucking sick-ass live-action opener. Like, just check the shit out, bro. Like, bro, come on, that's gotta be one of the sickest openers for any video game ever. As soon as you booted up the game, it immediately gave off a feeling of browsing a website. The way each piece of text you moused over would be highlighted accentuated this feeling, along with the sounds of every click and selection. It was an extraordinary way that Payday 2 immediately made the player feel like they were in the world of this game. It made you feel like you were actually browsing a shady criminal website. Then, once clicking on the crime.net tab, you were greeted with a map full of all the missions available to you, which was available as a sort of server browser in online mode, and a random mission generator for offline mode. Hovering over any of these missions would play a piece of dialogue, given to you through either a radio or a cell phone. This would once again establish that feeling of being contacted by various criminal contractors, and further sunk the player into this world of Payday 2. Once a mission was selected, you would hear a more detailed breakdown by the contractor, giving further information about the job. Here you would select your difficulty, whether you were planning to go in loud or quiet, and who the lobby would be available to, if anyone at all. If the lobby was set to offline, you'd be sent straight into pre-planning. If it was hosted online, however, you'd be put into another lobby waiting screen kind of thing where Stinger would play whenever a player joined you, and you could communicate prior to the start of the heist. Once everyone was readied up, you were taken into the pre-planning area, where a map is available to draw on, as well as various different assets available to be placed in different locations. This pre-planning screen further deepened the atmosphere and made the game even more immersive, allowing for route planning as well as giving an opportunity to alter gameplay with the various assets. Now, let's take a look at the user interface in Payday 3. Payday 3's UI, in my opinion, needs a drastic overhaul. Not only is it extremely generic and not nearly as stylistic as the Payday 2 UI, but there are already multiple things missing. One of the most awe-inspiring choices by Starbreeze was to completely get rid of CrimeNet for the launch of Payday 3. A Reddit post was made finding multiple images within the game of a CrimeNet interface, but for whatever reason, the team chose not to implement it for the launch of the game. I just do not understand why that decision was ever made to throw out one of the most interesting and unique user interfaces I've ever come across in my gaming journey. They clearly wanted to, but they either ran out of time or just gave up on it. I sincerely hope that they revive this aspect of the game, as it was one of my favorite menu screens ever. Along with this, Payday 3 released with no way to play solo offline, meaning that in the event of a server failure, the game is completely and utterly unplayable. That's why, if you look at Steam reviews right now, it says mostly negative for Payday 3. Since the servers have been completely dysfunctional for almost the entire week of launch, it is obvious why this is such a horrendous idea. If you do manage to get into a lobby, this screen is once again much more generic than the previous games. There's no distinguishing factors that make it scream, "This is a fucking Payday game!" No burning money rising up to the sky, no unique background, no cool guitar stingers when someone joins, nothing of that sort. Instead, Payday 3's pre-game screen could be applied to any generic shooter out there without anyone noticing. Many people have brought up the fact that Payday 3's UI is similar to that of Call of Duty, which I can easily see. There's just no immersion anymore, just characters standing in front of a generic-looking headquarters. Another thing missing is something as simple as being able to unready in the pregame screen. Once you ready up, you better fucking be ready because there's no going back without straight up leaving the lobby. One time I even readied up too early, so the servers didn't recognize that I was readied. This meant that our squad had to wait the entire fucking 5 minutes for the game to start, which is just really annoying. Once you're readied up, you're put straight into the game. Boom. No more pre-plan. You can still purchase assets, but you have no ability to choose where they're placed, and you can't purchase them from the pre-game screen. Instead, they made the genius decision to put it on a shop screen. If you want to purchase them, you have to leave the lobby to go to the vendors and purchase them at the very bottom of the screen, one at a time. From a user experience perspective, this is an absolutely drastic downgrade from the simplicity of Payday 2's pre-planning. To add to the pile of shit that this new system is, you can only pick one asset to bring into your mission with you. This means if you're playing alone, you can only pick one item to bring. Once again, players who prefer to solo, such as myself, are thrown right under the bus. Holy shit, the build variety in Payday 2. A major aspect of the fun in Payday 2 was the multitude of different builds that you could create for many different situations. There were a few important factors when it came to creating a build: perk decks, concealment or detection level, and skills. Perk decks were separate bonus sets of skills, all of which giving bonuses to XP and also headshot damage, along with skills which could drastically affect the way you played the game. One of the more popular perk decks was the Stoic perk deck. This deck gave you a flask of whiskey instead of a throwable, which would allow you to delay damage and heal yourself under certain conditions. There was even a perk deck called Yakuza, which gave you a massive speed boost for having low health, which was pretty popular for stealth. The next important factor for a build in Payday 2 was concealment. Concealment lowered your detection level, which was basically how easily guards could detect you in stealth, and both was affected by and even affected multiple different skills. It was also affected by the type of armor you were wearing, with higher armor levels yielding higher detection rates, with a maximum of 75, getting you detected almost instantly when seen. For example, there was a skill that gave a boost to concealment when using silencers, and then another skill which boosted dodge based on how high your concealment was. This second skill in particular created an entirely new type of build, the dodge build. The dodge stat did exactly as it sounded. The higher the dodge stat, the higher your chance of evading damage. The idea was to use the lowest level of armor possible, along with the most concealed weapons in the game, in order to achieve a low detection level, which would in turn yield high dodge stats when paired with said skill. Dodge builds were really fun, since you had all the survivability of a full armor build with all the speed of a low armor build. You could basically just fucking fly around like a Ferrari, without having to worry about getting immediately trucked on high difficulties. Lastly, but perhaps most importantly, was the multitude of different skill trees available in Payday 2. With the skill trees provided, you could do crazy things such as the dodge build I mentioned. You can make it so you can convert cops to be on your side, which then, once converted, kill you every so often, as long as you have a converted cop on your side. You can make a pistol build where your pistols do insane damage. You can do a shotgun build where your shotguns gain a crazy amount of ammo in each magazine and also do a ton of damage. You can do a sentry gun build. All of these things are just for loud builds.
Please be advised, the following presentation is not intended for minors.
Along with these, there were stealth builds. While one stealth build can generally be applied to most stealth heists, if you wanted to be as quick and as efficient as possible, there were plenty of tweaks to be made to a stealth build in order to do so. For the most part though, stealth builds revolved around the ghost skill tree, which did things like give you bonus ECMs, which could jam electronics, lower your concealment, allow you to hold more zip ties, which were not infinite like they are in Payday 3, make your drilling or lockpicking quicker, allow you a chance to fix drills by meleeing them. You could bring a silenced buzzsaw in order to bypass the necessity of lockpicking lockboxes, or to get extra loot from ATM machines. There are plenty of options that would enhance your stealth capabilities. Also, every single skill could be aced, which would grant an additional bonus to the skill, either improving said skill or granting essentially a totally different skill. On top of all these systems was an in-depth gunsmith, which is really far ahead of its time. For each and every gun, you can add attachments which would alter the way the weapon handled, similar to how Call of Duty does it nowadays. However, Payday 2 is a fucking 10-year-old game at this point, so the amount of customization within the system for such an old game is truly amazing. There are even skins which integrated with your Steam inventory, which could be acquired for free at the end of mission. One attachment could give a simple boost to many different things such as XP and even concealment. The way a gun was modified could make it either very concealed or extremely easy to detect, though many guns had a base high detection level and could not really be saved for stealth. What this meant is you could own two different versions of the same gun and have them work in completely different builds. Along with this, there were many attachments that could be found by collecting packages hidden throughout each heist. This meant if there was any downtime, such as waiting for a drill to complete or in between assault waves, there was a little scavenger hunt to complete. In my opinion, this is a fantastic way to give players a side objective while they were waiting for the heist to get going again. It was just a cool, unique way to get attachments which gave the game even more character. There was so much you could do with the different tools given by Starbreeze in Payday 2, and I just could not wait to see what they would do with the build variety in Payday 3. So, what did they do with it? How did they build upon such a diverse and interesting system in Payday 2? Well, first off, they took out concealment, detection levels, perk decks, skill trees, and they gutted weapon customization. So pretty much all of the things that made build variety great in Payday 2 are fucking gone. So what did they replace it with? Well, basically they made the skills in Payday 3 act similar to the perk decks of Payday 2. In order for you to gain access to a skill line, you have to first research it and gain enough XP to unlock it. You then need to equip the first skill in that line in order to continue unlocking the other skills in said skill line. If a skill line does not have any skill points allocated to it, you will not be able to level up that skill line, meaning you won't be able to access the skills that are further in that line. This is a drastic change from the way it worked in Payday 2, where you would gain skill points as you leveled up to level 100 and could simply allocate skills to any skill tree you wanted. The higher you got in a skill tree, the more skill points were required in order to access those skills at the top of the tree. Your Infamy levels, which I'll talk about later, would make it easier for skills higher in the tree to become usable. This meant that as long as you had the skill points, you could advance in a skill tree and get to the top if you put all of them into said tree. In Payday 3, before you can use any skills, you first have to level up those skill lines, meaning you will not be able to use a lot of skills until you invest time into leveling them up. This also means you have to spend points on skills that you might not even want to use in the beginning of your journey in order to access the skills that are later in the skill line. Sure, in Payday 2 there were plenty of skill points wasted since it was necessary to put skill points into a tree before climbing up it, but at least you did not have to level up the skill trees. I personally see this as a tedious and unnecessary addition, which also goes for the new weapon system. Let's go! Weapons in Payday 3 now have levels, which is just so damn unnecessary. This means that if you want to use sights, or different barrels, or grips, or any kind of attachment, you need to level the fucking gun up first. The gun system in Payday 2 felt immersive, because all you had to do to get access to most of the attachments in the game was order them with a special kind of currency, or earn them in missions. The Gunsmith UI back then made it feel like you were personally adding the attachments to the weapons in a workshop, once again adding character to the screen. In Payday 3, your gun floats in front of you, mocking you for being the stupid jackass who doesn't know how to slap a red dot sight onto a gun until it's level 7, despite knowing how to do so in the previous games. They did include plenty of different ways to color your weapons in Payday 3, but overall the customization is much more stripped down than it was in Payday 2. Each gun only has a few different attachments, and it is generally nothing crazy when they did such a great job in their previous game. So, in Payday 3, the only methods of build variety are armor, weapons with fewer customizations, and skill lines. Along with this, Payday 3 changed the way they handle hit points, by removing regeneration entirely. In Payday 2, if your armor ran out, it exposed your health. Your armor would regenerate after a certain time period, which could be shortened by skills, whereas your health would not regenerate unless you had very specific skills. It was more likened to Halo Combat Evolved or Halo Reach, where you would have to seek out health packs in order to replenish your health. In Payday 3, your armor is much beefier, like it can take a ton of hits, but the only way to regenerate it aside from a skill which only partially regenerates it, is by finding armor plates. Why they would go the way of Call of Duty Warzone in this game is not clear to me whatsoever. Now it is much more annoying for a player who is just starting to attempt to play the game solo, since you yourself can only bring in one asset like I mentioned earlier, whereas armor cases are separate from medic cases. I personally do not like this change at all, but I can appreciate that they're trying to do something different. Who knows, maybe I'll come to like it once I can get a better build, but for now, I'm at level 30. The only survivability I have is a skill that lets me partially refill my armor when picking up little ammo boxes under certain conditions. And also my armor bag has more charges, which is, something, I guess. Alright, how about stealth builds? Well, they're fucking gone. With very few skills even relating to stealth, the main ones being in the hacker skill line. This means no more low blow, no more increasing interaction speed, no more ECM rushing, buzzsawing, parkour, far bag throwing, shooting while sprinting, or even jack of all trades, which just let you have 2 different deployables. All of those are gone. So compared to Payday 2, Payday 3 just feels so fucking stripped down when it comes to build variety. And while I get that Payday 2 had an entire decade to have its build crafting fleshed out, why is it that a brand new installment to the franchise took out so many of the things that were integral to the way the previous game was played? The main focus of Payday 3's skills are 3 buffs, which go by the names Edge, Grit, and Rush. Edge gives you a damage boost of 10%, Grit gives you a damage negation of 10%, and Rush gives you a little speed boost. Various skills determine when these buffs are active, while other skills are only active once one or more of these buffs are active. For example, I have a skill which enables Grit when I kill 2 enemies in close proximity to me, and enables Edge when I kill 1 more in a similar time frame. The skill I talked about earlier, where a piece of my damaged armor is repaired when I pick up ammo boxes, that's only active when Grit is up. I actually do kind of like these sorts of systems because they incentivize you to know your build and how the skills interact with each other. I just wish that they gave us more to work with since they got rid of most of the build options I mentioned previously. Lastly, Starbreeze has decided to give you what is basically an ultimate from Destiny. Throughout the heist, a cooldown is ticking down slowly, which will enable you to call in your Overkill weapon. A little bit on the nose there, isn't it? Currently, there are only 2 options: a grenade launcher and a sniper. Granted, both of these weapons were available in Payday 2 as part of the normal loadout system. You just fucking slap it on your back and run into the heist with it. And also in that game, you could customize them in the gunsmith, which is no longer an option. Most of the time I totally forget about overkill weapons altogether, just due to the fact that the one I have right now, the grenade launcher, it's not really that good. I'd rather just use the guns I have than wait for the grenade launcher's projectiles to explode. If you do get a direct hit with it, the projectile explodes immediately. Otherwise, even your AI partners are going to kill the cops that you shot your grenade at by the time it detonates. I really don't understand why they would take these out of the normal loadouts and put them into such a system. It's just so fucking unnecessary. In a later update to Payday 2, Starbreeze added the ability to customize your AI teammates in the event that you wanted to solo, or if you were short a man in pubs. This was a very good addition since it allowed you to give your AI teammates powerful guns and abilities. One of their abilities made you interact with things faster, while another gave one AI Inspire, which is a player skill that allows you to shout at a teammate to instantly revive them every so often. This was great because it meant you could be reliably revived quickly if you were downed. The AI could also trade in hostages for you if you were put into custody, but only if you took hostages first, as they could not take their own hostages. If you did not have any hostages, the heist would fail in the event that you are in custody. But at least you had the opportunity to prepare. How did they improve this in Payday 3, you might ask? Well, they completely removed it, of course. Yep. They found yet another way to screw over solo players. This is just another quality of life feature that I am absolutely fucking astonished they didn't carry over into the newest installment. Once again, isn't the point of a new game to improve on the previous? Today, Payday 2 has over 400 masks which you can customize with patterns and materials. The amount of different ways to style your mask was pretty crazy, and that was even before they added the ability to change your suits and gloves. In Payday 3, I can admit there are a great variety of new suits and gloves, but what is in my opinion the most important part of your character when he is a bank robber is his mask. This game released with just 26 masks, most of which are not even that cool in my personal opinion. I don't mean to shit on the designs for this one, but I personally prefer the more dark and badass masks over the goofy ones. For Payday 2, I used a customized version of the Le Castlevania mask, which I thought was pretty cool looking, especially on Jacket. Then on my stealth build, I had the infamous Plague Doctor mask, which I thought was pretty dark and cool as well. In Payday 3, I would say the coolest mask they have at launch is the Lady Liberty mask, which is exclusive to the $90 version of the game. To be clear, I got this version of the game and would be using the mask, but equipping it causes the game to crash if I'm using DirectX 12. So for now, I can't use my cool $90 mask if I want to actually play the fucking game. Great. But yeah, I personally find most of the new masks to be too goofy for me, so for now I'm just going to be sticking with Dallas's classic mask until I can use the Lady Liberty one. I know for certain that they will be adding more masks, but I'm once again just disappointed by the state of this system at launch. While some could see the safe house as a somewhat pointless addition, I personally love what it does for immersion within the game. Basically, the safe house was a currency sink, which allowed you to pay for various visual upgrades. It is a place where all the characters of the Payday gang lived. Along with the visual upgrades, you could go into your vault and see a visual representation of the money you had accrued over the time playing a game. Something about seeing the millions of dollars I'd come across in the game laid out in front of me was very cool to me, and it made me want to make more in order to fill up the huge vault beneath the safe house. There was even an entire unique mission which had you defending your safe house while the cops try to raid it. This mission would appear at random on your safe house tab and would allow you to either have the team handle it or have you go into the mission yourself. While I understand that the entire point of Payday 3's story is that the Payday gang was ratted out and forced to leave their safe house along with all of their money, that doesn't mean they couldn't have added a new safe house. It would have been a great opportunity for a new gameplay system or even a visual representation of the skill system. They could have maybe made it so that you had to talk to various members of the Payday gang in order to unlock new skill lines, which they're planning to release in later updates. Something along those lines. Anything to incorporate the safe house in a more meaningful way. But instead, it is completely absent from this release. It's such a shame when they could have turned it into a cool new mission hub and slapped a laptop somewhere in there for you to browse CrimeNet in it as well. I mean, these are just ideas, but they must have crossed Starbreeze's minds at some point, right? Once again, another downgrade from Payday 2 is the heists. While the heists in Payday 3 are of high quality and I generally have no qualms with them, except for the first one for not being solo friendly, there are a few things missing. First, Payday 3 is released with 8 heists, which can be run through relatively quickly. Granted, the gameplay loop and gunplay of Payday 3, just like Payday 2, make the heists very replayable, and so there's no issue in that regard. The only problem with this is that Payday 2, which was released in 2013, an entire decade ago, came out with 12 heists. If anything, the number of heists in a new installment should go up, not down. Why is Payday 3, a brand new game, releasing with 4 less heists than its predecessor from 10 years ago? I had to pay for the season passes in order to get that 12 heist number in the future. Another fan favorite feature that is missing is endless heists. Endless heists were some of the most popular in Payday 2, with one favorite being Cook-Off. Why would they not throw us a bone here at launch and at least give us one endless heist? Come on. Just one. Not only is it extremely fun to hold out and see how long you can last, but this kind of heist is extremely good for replayability. Speaking of holding out, now admittedly, Holdout was not a particularly popular mode from the way I remember it, but that's what a sequel is for, improving on things that were weak in previous titles. The Holdout mode of Payday 2 is basically a defense mission from Warframe, except with a more criminal twist. You have to defend a hostage for as long as you can in order to get more ransom money. This mode got increasingly more difficult the longer you spent holding out, with the most annoying aspect being how easy it could be to not see that your hostage was being released by a cop. If your hostage was released, you failed the heist. The only complaint with this mode was that it could get a little repetitive at times, but I generally had a good time since it was pretty rewarding and provided plenty of hours of entertainment to me. Payday 2 is 3 achievements shy of having more achievements than both The Binding of Isaac Rebirth and Halo, the Master Chief Collection, combined. To be clear, The Master Chief Collection has a total of 6 games in it alone, without even taking into account The Binding of Isaac, which has one of the biggest number of achievements I've ever seen for a lone game. You know, aside from those achievement games on Steam. Just like The Binding of Isaac, many of the achievements in Payday 2 gave exclusive rewards, most of which being cosmetic. Some of the coolest masks in Payday 2 were locked behind achievements, one of them being that you had to complete every single heist on Death Sentence 1 down, which is an extremely difficult task. I personally have yet to even complete all the heists in the game because of how many there are. This is one of the things that I am a sucker for in video games. Weird and difficult challenges that reward you with cool cosmetics, just like the Hayabusa armor and the Recon armor sets from Halo 3. They are basically equipable bragging rights, showing off to other players how dedicated you are to looking cool. How did they implement that philosophy into Payday 3? Well, the 1,328 achievements that are currently in Payday 2 were trimmed down to 22 for Payday 3. Now, I'm not going to deny that the amount of achievements in Payday 2 is somewhat bloated, since you get a unique achievement for every difficulty level you complete on every heist. But there were still plenty of difficult and actually challenging ones that gave you special rewards. In Payday 3, you cannot get a single item from any of the achievements. Instead, those achievements were replaced with challenges, which mostly just give XP. I am hopeful that Starbreeze will add more achievements and also give more special rewards for them as well. But at launch, that experience is completely null and void, just like another popular experience. Crime Spree was an incredibly simple yet fantastic idea for putting a new spin on heists, which may have been getting a little repetitive for some people. The idea around Crime Spree was exactly how it sounds. Do multiple heists in a row. Yeah, I know, it sounds pretty dull, but it made for some high stakes, high reward fun. Basically, each successful heist would increase your Crime Spree rank. As that rank went up, you would be forced to choose between various debuffs. Eventually, those debuffs would pile up until a heist was too difficult to complete, and you would fail. If you failed a heist, you would need to spend a special currency in order to get back your Crime Spree levels. Not only was Crime Spree one of the greatest methods of XP grinding, but it was a great source of money and also gave you a ton of rewards at the end using an interesting system in Payday 2, which would normally only give you one singular reward after a heist. Whether you chose to cash in or fail the heist, you would always get your rewards, but upon claiming them, you would be sent back to Crime Spree rank 0 and have to do it all over again. It was a very popular mode and was used to help another system which is missing in Payday 3. When I first discovered the Infamy system years ago, all I could really liken it to was the prestige system of older Call of Duties. In Payday 2, the maximum level was level 100. However, you could choose to go Infamous and reset that level back to 0 and be rewarded Infamy points. The Infamous masks were unique with cool effects on each of them, making them a worthwhile reward on their own. However, spending your Infamy points on those masks would also make it so that you would require less skill points in a tree to go up each branch. This means that you could get more of those skills you wanted without having to waste as many skill points on the ones you don't need. It was a brilliant incentive for people to go Infamous and start their journey to level 100 all over again. Over in Payday 3, this system is nowhere to be seen. Starbreeze has simply renamed Experience level to Infamy and capped it at 150, and you can unlock everything by level 100, meaning that going the last 50 levels are pretty much pointless aside from bragging rights at the moment. Also, apparently challenges are the only way to get XP in Payday 3. You get no experience at all for completing a heist, only for completing challenges, meaning you're forced to use the guns you don't want to use in order to level up. What kind of change is this? Why would you actively seek to make your gameplay feel less rewarding? It just doesn't make sense. While I'm sure they have more planned for post-launch, I'm still annoyed that we have to wait. Once again, a sequel is supposed to build upon the previous game, not start off bare bones and slowly work the features of previous games into the newest release. Once you hit maximum level, there's no point to continue playing until they release the next update. To be clear, in a more recent update, Starbreeze increased the maximum Infamy level to 500 in Payday 2, meaning you could prestige a total of 500 times. Granted, they only added rewards up to level 100 if I'm not mistaken, but it is still an option to continue working towards something while the developers create new heists. In Payday 3, the only option is to continue doing challenges, but there's little incentive for that when most of the challenges only reward experience. Payday. The namesake of the game. How in their right minds could Starbreeze take Paydays out of Payday? In Payday 2, at the end of every successful heist, you'd be granted a choice of 1 out of 3 cards. Picking a card would give you anything from a new mask to a measly 20 grand. You could get weapon attachments, masks, mask patterns, mask materials, weapon skins, which used to be from the safes they used to sell on the Steam market, XP, a whole bunch of stuff. While many of the things you got would end up being unused, it was still a cool thing to get a little extra something as a pat on the back for finishing a heist, you know? Starbreeze giving you a little hug to say thank you for playing our game, and it was also neat to see what your teammates would get as well. But even if these Payday screens gave you the most useless garbage imaginable, it was still a part of the game's charm. Why? Why would they not include this system in Payday 3 and put more meaningful rewards into it? This is just another thing which I am sincerely hoping they add back into the game, with even more cool rewards than before. Okay, so at the end of the day, Payday 3 pales in comparison to Payday 2 in almost every aspect. The only improvements made were in graphical fidelity and gunplay. While Payday 3 as a game on its own is fun when you actually manage to play it, the fact that it is so far behind Payday 2 at release is absolutely aggravating. I don't blame people like the Axeman who didn't play Payday 2 for liking Payday 3 because it is a good game. It's got fun gameplay, you know, doing heists in video game form is never not going to be fun. The thing is, why would you want to buy Payday 3 when you could buy Payday 2 instead? There are so many things missing from the game at release that I honestly wish they left it in the oven for another year or so. I feel like most of the development time went towards the developers learning the new game engine because otherwise, I just don't know where all of their resources went. I understand that for a while there was uncertainty as to whether or not Starbreeze would even continue to keep their doors open amidst their publisher debacle, but that's not really an excuse to put out such an unfinished product. Payday 3 is without a doubt fun to play, and again, if you isolate it, it's not a bad game on its own aside from the insane server issues. But if I'm playing a game and constantly being reminded of all the things that are missing, how could I ever recommend such a game in such state? If you're watching this and you have not purchased Payday 3 yet, I would highly recommend saving your money until it is drastically improved. If you have never tried out Payday 2, it is more than worth the money. You can get the entire game with all 10 years of its DLC for less than this game if you find it on a sale, unless I'm mistaken. Payday 2 is packed with content and is well worth your time. For such a good price, you can get hundreds and hundreds of hours out of the game and still find new things to do. Yes, I'll admit, it looks pretty dated at this point, but I promise the gameplay is fantastic as well as the many different systems I have outlined in this video. Please, if you enjoyed playing GTA Online Heist with your buddies, Payday 2 is an entire game based off that concept. So for the last time, do yourself a favor and get it into your library as soon as you reasonably can. But yeah, Payday 3 by comparison is not worth playing right now. I will probably continue to play it until I hit that wall of having to use guns I dislike and get annoyed, but if you've not bought it yet, I would not recommend picking it up in its current state. To whoever made it through the entirety of this video, I thank you for sticking with me and listening to me suck the shit out of Payday 2. I really hope I gave you some insight into the true depth that Payday 2 had in comparison to this game. Let me know in the comments what you are missing from Payday 2 that did not make it into Payday 3. Also, let me know if there were any things in Payday 3 that were done better than Payday 2. Once again, thanks so much for watching. This is the first video I'm making that is of this sort of analytical type. So let me know if there's anything that can be done better on my part. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe if you're willing to bear the burden of listening to more of my yapping. Anyways, have a good day. See you in the next one. In Payday 3, the only option is to Man, holy shit.